You're watching Seattle Seahawks Today, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. Mel Kiper Jr. has a new draft board out. And on today's show, we are going to break down the draft targets that Mel has for your Seattle Seahawks. Who could they potentially select at 18th overall? We'll go over Mel's list in just a bit. Tyler Jones here. Thanks for joining us. Speaking of the draft, I got a question out there. No wrong answers. This is strictly your opinion, folks. Who is the greatest Seahawks draft pick of all time? No wrong answers. Whoever it is, I want you to spam their name at least 20 times. Get in that chat. Let us know who you think is the greatest, and we'll get going here on today's program. So let me tell you how I did this. So Mel put out his big board of 25 players. And with Seattle selecting at 18, what I have done is I have taken 15 players from that 25 that could potentially be available that also would fulfill a potential team need for Seattle as well. That is how we have broken this down for you to show you who these potential draft targets are. Before we get to the full list, let's go over the offseason outlook for Seattle. Mike Macdonald entering his second season with the Seahawks. Seattle kind of limited on cap space, about $15.17 million, according to the folks at overthecap.com. And they say draft picks cost about $10 million on average, so not a ton of money to spend on that front. The team needs, they're all over the place. Offensive tackle, interior of the offensive line, edge, corner, linebacker, quarterback, tight end, wide receiver, just to name a few. So, where will Seattle be picking in this year's draft? They have 8 total picks, which begins in the first round at pick 18, second round pick at 50, third round pick at 82, a fourth round pick at 136, and then they have a fifth round pick at 171, 2 sixth round picks, one at 183, the other at 210, and then their final pick is at 234. So with that said, let's go over the list of draft targets for Seattle from Mel Kiper Jr. as we begin with Kelvin Banks Jr., who is the number 10 overall player on Mel Kiper's draft board. I'll say this, Kelvin Banks probably not going to be available when Seattle picks at 18, but I've seen the mock drafts kind of have him all over the place. He is kind of the long shot. He would be the best hope, best case scenario, is if he were to fall to Seattle at 18. Kiper describes him for an offensive tackle, has a lot of mobility, has a big frame, and he's super strong. Those are all things I love hearing about an offensive lineman. Kelvin Banks is ready to be a day one starter in the National Football League. Then we turn our attention to Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU. And the thing that Kiper says about Will Campbell is that he's got a big frame, so similar to Kelvin Banks in that sense, and solid footwork. He can move around well. If you're going to go tackle, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of these two. And it is worth noting, by the way, folks, this might be a little spoiler for when we get to the other names on this list. Mel does not have a single offensive guard within his top 25 on the big board. So we will not name an offensive guard from Mel Kiper Jr. because there's not one that he has a first-round grade on at this point in time. With that said, if you had to pick one of these two offensive tackles, who would it be? Would you rather go with Kelvin Banks or would you rather go with Will Campbell? Type KB for Kelvin Banks. Type WC for Will Campbell. Weigh in the chat and let us know. Today's show is sponsored by Game Time. Game Time is the place to go for the best seats, the lowest prices guaranteed. Whether you're looking for tickets to sporting events, concerts, theater productions, comedy shows, and more, Game Time has got you covered. The NFL playoffs are here, and I got to tell you, I've had some great memories over the years going to NFL playoff games. Took my dad to a playoff game a couple of years ago, and if you want to go to the AFC or NFC Championship, maybe you want to go to the big game here in a couple of weeks. Maybe you just want to go to a game in Seattle, seeing the Kraken play. You can do so with Game Time. Game Time is a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals and great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. They have their super deals. If you see a super deal, that's a deal you don't want to pass up on. You can customize your spot. They have their seat views and get the visual, see what that seat is like. It's real simple. You choose the event you want to go to. They got the prices listed. You choose your seat, and then boom, just like that, you're checking out on Apple Pay, Google Pay, Venmo, all major credit card providers. And with Game Time, the lowest price, it's guaranteed. Or Game Time will give you 110% of the difference. Game Time also has ticket coverage. Your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code ChatSports for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. The link is in the comments and the description of today's video. Game Time, proud partner of Seattle Seahawks today. Next on the list, one of my favorite players in this entire draft, Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State. I've compared him to Brock Bowers. I feel like he's Brock Bowers 2.0. And let me say two things when it comes to Tyler Warren here, folks. Number one, a lot of you morons, I'm just going to call you morons out there, have said, we don't need a tight end, we need offensive linemen. All right, let me teach you some football 101 here. Last time I checked, the tight end position is on the offensive line. And this is a tight end that can do it all. He's a blocker. He's a pass catcher. He could play some H-back. So I don't want to hear from any of you yahoos out there saying, well, I want an offensive lineman. He is an offensive lineman, damn it. And he is a generational tight end. I love Tyler Warren. Every elite team in the National Football League has a great tight end. The Seahawks do not. And for the crowd out there, folks are saying, well, maybe Noah Fant's not the guy. We got A.J. Barner. A.J. is not going to be any more than a number 2 tight end in this league. And personally, I think you're better off with 2 good tight ends than 1. Tyler Warren would be a big addition. And for those of you that were against me last year when I was a big fan of Brock Bowers, look what he did with the Raiders this past year. Had the best season ever for a rookie tight end in the National Football League. How nice would have that been to have in Seattle in this past year? So I am right. If you disagree with me, you are wrong. You are wrong. You're a hater and you are a loser. Tyler Warren would be great for Seattle. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Damn straight. All right. Now, I'm off my soapbox. Let's go to Josh Simmons now. Simmons, offensive tackle from the Ohio State. And Kiper describes him as consistent. He's got excellent footwork. So I'm noticing a theme so far with these offensive tackles. All of them move well. That's good. I like hearing that when it comes to Josh Simmons there at Ohio State. And you think about the offensive line at Ohio State. Things were kind of up and down, but Josh Simmons has been a very consistent football player throughout his career. Let's go to the safety position. Now, this is not the highest need for Seattle, but it is one where they don't have a ton of depth. And that's where we find Malachi Starks from Georgia. And the thing that Kiper describes about Malachi Starks is that he affects the game in a variety of ways. And think about this, all right? Hear me out. Mike Macdonald, when he was at his best in Baltimore, was when he was able to use 3 safeties, when he did those 3 high safety looks. Didn't get to do that a ton this year in Seattle. You bring in a guy like Malachi, all of a sudden, Julian Love, Kobe Bryant, Malachi, now you're getting dangerous in that safety room potentially there. Let's continue. Let's go to another Georgia Bulldog. This is where we find outside linebacker Mel Williams. Seattle likely not going to bring back Uchenna and Nwosu. Draymond Jones probably gone as well. Williams is described by Kiper as explosive, speed to power. This guy's got some moves. He's got some moves that are better than Jagger. I can tell you that right now. Very good football player. He could be a difference maker potentially for Seattle on that front there. Next up, we find Michigan tight end Colston Loveland. Loveland was a bit banged up this past season, but the year prior, he actually had a better year than Tyler Warren. Despite him missing some time this year, he was still a second-team All-American. He was still a second-team All-Big Ten selection. And Kiper describes him as a middle-of-the-field guy. A lot of you don't trust Geno Smith, and I understand. You want to give him a little safety net, a little potential, a safety window of sorts. How about using the middle of the field and give him a little blanket and Colston Loveland potentially there? I think that could be a good fit for what Seattle is trying to do on that front there. Let's go to the corner position now. And that's where we find East Carolina corner Chavon Revel Jr. At this spot. Revel was banged up a bit this past season, but I got to tell you, I do like Chavon Revel, what we saw from the small sample size before he got hurt and what he did the year prior as an All-American Conference player. Solid guy. And the thing that I like about him that Mel Kiper talked about is that he's big and long. Pause. He looks the part. He looks the part of what you're looking for at that position. I think that this is a guy that, assuming he gets healthy, he's ready to be a day one starter. The Seahawks have already indicated they're bringing Rick Wallen back. Obviously, Devin Witherspoon's going to be in his third year. You still need some help on who's going to be that other outside corner next to Rick. Revel could potentially be a good fit there. Who's a player the Seahawks should draft? Way in the comments section, give me a name that comes to mind that you would like to see Seattle potentially bring in. Up next, we find Walter Nolan. He was the number one player in the transfer portal this past year. He got quite the bag there from Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss and was one of the best defensive players in all of college football this past season with Ole Miss and took on a lot of double teams, and yet he still handled that situation well. Kiper describes him as disruptive. He's strong with his hands. We don't know how much longer Jaron Reed is going to be around here. You put Nolan and Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams together. Whoa, doggies. That's going to be a scary defensive front potentially there if you pair those two up on that end. Another defensive tackle for you. How about Derek Harmon from the University of Oregon? Started his career with Michigan State, made the transition to the Ducks this year, and I thought he was undervalued. He was named a second-team All-Big Ten selection. I thought he should have been a first-team All-Big Ten selection. And similar to Walter Nolan, took a lot of double teams. His numbers weren't over the top, but they didn't tell the full story of how much of an impact Derek Harmon had. And the way that Kiper describes him is he brings power to cause chaos. I'm looking for disruptors. All right? I'm looking for guys that can make an impact, that can change the game. Derek Harmon could potentially do that for Seattle if they brought him in. Let's go to the linebacker position. Seattle, of course, looking to bring back Ernest Jones. Tyrese Knight wasn't bad as a rookie this year, but another piece that could be a nice upgrade potentially from Knight is Jihad Campbell there from the University of Alabama. And the way that Kiper describes him, he says he does everything right. Kiper says that every NFL defensive coordinator would want what Campbell brings to the table, that he is a smart football player, that he is a smart football mind, that he does the little things right, that he's very coachable. These guys that are entering the draft, 21, 22, 23 years old, a lot of them, they got the big egos. They think they know it all. That's not the case with Campbell. He is a very good player in that sense that he's willing to be coached up, and every defensive coordinator, including AD and Mike Macdonald, would love him. What's the biggest need for the Seahawks in this draft? Way in the comment section, give me what you believe is the biggest need for Seattle. Up next, let's go defensive end. This is where we find from Texas A&M, Nick Scorton. And the thing with Scorton, you got to keep an eye on the speed, according to Kiper. Kiper says he has impressive closing speed. The way that he can get there and get after the quarterback, That burst that he shows, that's a difference maker for him. That could be a nice asset for this Seahawks defense. Another name from Texas A&M includes Shamar Stewart, also at the defensive end position. And the thing about Shamar Stewart that Kiper says is that his physical traits are off the charts. This is somebody that when it comes combine time, I think is going to test really well and see his stock potentially jump on that end. One of my favorite players in this draft, he was named the number one player in college football entering the 2024 campaign, is James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. And the thing with Pierce, his numbers weren't as good as people expected him to be this year, but he was taking on so many double teams. He was a difference maker more than people realized, and he brings a lot of speed off the edge in his ability to get after the quarterback, and he's a good all-around player. I really like James Pierce Jr., that speed that he brings to the table. I think he'd be a lot of fun potentially for Mike Macdonald to work with. Mike Macdonald's got a great track record of dealing with those outside linebackers. The final name on our list is Kenneth Grant. And Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle from Michigan. And Kenneth Grant, this is somebody that I've seen draft boards kind of all over the place. Some people say first round. I've seen as low as third round. But he looks the part. He's got terrific traits. He's got the explosion that you're looking for there. Kenneth Grant was an impact player. And you look at that Michigan team. The offense was awful, right? But the defense had some players. Kenneth Grant was one of those dudes for that Michigan team this year. Who is your favorite player in this year's draft? Comment your answer down below. Weigh in and let us know in the comment section. Appreciate you joining us here on this edition of Seattle Seahawks Today. Follow me on X at Tyler Jones Live for continuing draft coverage, and we'll see you next time.